Welcome, everybody. We appreciate you joining. I am Chad Skipper. I reside at VMware. I'm the Global Security Technologist for the Network and Advanced Security Business Group. And I've been in the security industry for well over 25 years, and we're excited to be a partner with AttackIQ. We use them in many ways, just like you do. And some of the ways that we use them is in our current development and QA process. We use them in showing our capabilities even with our customers. And today I'm here with Victor Monga, a peer of mine within VMware. Victor, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Victor Monga. As Chad mentioned, I am a technical marketing architect within the same business group. And as Chad mentioned, we are excited to partner with AttackIQ. Again, we always try to figure out ways how to test controls and actually make sure that whatever the telemetry comes out of that, and we can actually showcase and help our customers to test their controls. So really excited to speak to you about our journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about that, our journey. And what we're going to be speaking to you today is actually with the help of AttackIQ, we have been able to, like Victor said, really test and provide some value differentiations around our product when demoing and really going after what our customers want. And that, at the end of the day, is either to prevent advanced threats from happening or reduce that dwell time within the organization. And today we're going to walk you through some of the innovations in ransomware defense for today's multi-cloud environments and how we are stitching all this together across the many tactics, techniques, and procedures that we're seeing the threat actors perform across our network. So let's get into this right quick. You know, we've probably seen lots of stats. You recognize these stats, but and you know, we're seeing 4,000 ransomware attacks every day. That's just what VMware is seeing from that perspective. And if you take a look at the damage that's been done, you know, over the years, you're looking at going from 2018 to 2020 from $8 billion to $20 billion in damage, with a spend of well over $123 billion in US money in 2020 for these security technologies. And so when folks are getting victimized every 11 seconds, and just look at, you know, what we just saw with lapsus and, you know, teenagers being caught. We've got fully funded adversary syndicates here, ransomware as a service. I literally can go in 4 clicks, you know, be able to create ransomware and deploy it. And, you know, it's one thing that we work with AttackIQ on. Yeah, it's about getting persistence. That's the first thing that attacker really wants to do is stealthily persist within the organizations. But that's just the first step on day one out of what, Victor, was 197 days on average, right, that folks are staying inside the organization. In any case, right, the next thing that they're doing is they're actually looking at ways to discover your organization and move laterally to the assets, to the data, right, in which they eventually want to exfiltrate out of your organization. So Victor and I are going to walk you through an attack sequence and show you exactly, you know, where our technologies fits within those attack sequences, and be rest assured that, you know, AttackIQ is always helping us be able to form these real world attack scenarios for our testing purposes as well. So at first, naturally, you're going to see the initial access and command and control. So in most attack sequences, it's going to start off with trying to become persistent on that workload, on that PC, on that virtual desktop infrastructure. And then from there, they want to establish that command and control. So what we see here as an example is Cobalt Strike. This is a remote access tool. It allows us to gain persistency. And from that Cobalt Strike, we begin to see other aspects. But let's take a look at this. Some of our data that we've seen in the back end is, you know, when it comes to human interaction, human error, the ability for the threat actor to interact, right, with your users, we're seeing an upwards of 33% of the initial access attempt coming in some form of phishing. And even from our back-end telemetry, the threat analysis unit here at VMware, we're seeing 4% of all business email contain some type of malicious component. Now, just think about that a minute. 4% of business emails that pass perimeter controls contain some type of malicious component. Now, as we move further down this attack chain, 6 minutes later, after that initial access, this is all about what that threat actor is doing once they've gained that persistence. And we see command and control, right, that has been established within this threat actor. So that's the first step: get access, do that command and control. And what we test with and what we have and where AttackIQ helps us is we are able to provide this seamless attack chain and show with real world attacks what our capabilities are here. And to level set everyone, we've got EDR, endpoint detection response. This is the endpoint and workload protection from Carbon Black Cloud and Carbon Black Workload. And then it's not only just residence on that endpoint, it's about visibility and observability within a network as well. And we've got east-west security controls, starting with segmentation, micro segmentation. We all have heard about IDS, IPS, moving up the stack to where network traffic analysis, network sandboxing, and then finally correlating all this together with NDR. So let's take a look at that first step right quick. In that first step that we see the initial access and the command and control, we have technologies that is able to detect these types of things. And right now in that initial access command and control, we've got Carbon Black, we've got the network sandbox, as well as our distributed IDS, IPS that plays a role in here. So the first one that plays a role, looking at those malicious payloads that the threat actor is trying to get your user to interact with, we have integrated a network sandbox within the hypervisor of the VM. So what that gives us is full system emulation, and full system emulation is the ability to emulate the operating system, the memory, and the CPU, so that we can interact with that threat user and interact with the content that the adversary is trying to get the user to interact with. So in this first stage, we see a malicious file download, right? And we're able to take that off the wire and actually execute that within the sandbox. And what you see here is everything that we know that is mapped right to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So we see things like command and control that was observed by this threat actor, Cobalt Strike. If you keep on going down, connecting to a server or hard IP address, we see that, and we can take, capture that. Even defense evasion, the things that this threat actor is trying to evade your infrastructure, and the way that we're able to really, pull all of the telemetry out of a threat, an artifact, a .exe, .elf, PowerPoints, documents, PDFs, these things. What we're seeing in the industry is the OS emulation of these sandboxes, while good, just don't have enough information to understand if behavior is really harmless. Like I see running processes, I'm reading multiple files, and I'm able to write back to disk and open a network connection, but is that truly malicious? Do we have enough information? The answer to that is really not really. We just don't have enough information, and that's why you have to emulate not only the OS, but the CPU and the memory, so that we understand, hey, look, it's looking for the presence of a sandbox. So maybe it wants to sleep so that it can evade that sandbox. It's doing evasive checks on the CPU. It's doing within memory encrypting routines for like ransomware. Also, we can see over the network things like the encryption key and the command and control. So that's one of the ways in which we have insights into that initial access and that initial incursion. So I want to turn it over to Victor right quick, because naturally there are some things on the Carbon Black Cloud that enables us to see all this telemetry as well. So Victor, off to you.
Yeah, so as we are looking at it, and Chad did a great job at talking about initial access and then looking deep into the network aspects of that attack or that side of the attack. Now, before we continue and I talk about the endpoint visibility and what you need from the endpoint perspective, think of this way. And I've been always a huge fan of testing your controls. So we have policies that drive down whatever the tactics or tactical strategy you have to go in and build those policies, detect, protect, prevent, remediate, whatever those are. Think of this for a second. You had a change control, you had something new, and you made a change. Now, what is that solution going back and testing if the controls are still intact? How does your system make sure that making a change to a system, making a change to a firewall, making a change to endpoint policy still remains intact? All the policies you have to make sure to prevent your crown jewels. That is where really I really agree with this chat's statement about AttackIQ does a great job, and you can schedule all of those testing your controls. Now, as we looked at the network data, as we looked at the network telemetry, you need that to really have the full system emulation and dig deep into what is an adversary trying to do? Initial access, how they came in, what they tried to take it out, how they tried to move within your network, within your organization, because no attack will actually come from one end and just died at one end, endpoint or workstation or a server. It would never happen that way. They would have to do something lateral movement within your organization. So that's where that piece of within your public or private cloud lateral movement is happening. Now, think of this way for a second. What's actually happening on the endpoint level? What are the processes they triggered? What are the actual scripts they actually typed? Were they actually encoded? Were they actually decoded? So all of that telemetry about the cross processes, about the registry modifications, that's where it comes to a awareness for security leaders that we need data, raw data, endpoint detection response data from EDR platforms. And best in breed is Carbon Black Cloud, where we're giving you raw data as well as we're giving you recommendations that this is what anomaly looks like, not based on just signatures, not based on just the old school ways of detecting alerts, based on anomalies. And we're going to jump into a demo in a few minutes here where there's actually no signature at all. And yet we're able to see how Carbon Black Cloud were able to tell you that this seems anomaly. This seems something is correlated with something known, bad known. So again, as we go through it, as you're looking at the network side of the visibility, endpoint side of the visibility actually complements each other and make sure that you have complete visibility to actually drive the detection and prevention for a complete visibility and detection and prevention for your organization. And we'll continue this attack chain and we'll continue explaining this in a way where you connect with that what's happening in a real life, in a real world. Back to you, Chad.
Thank you, Victor. Yeah, you're absolutely right. In order for us to have observability around every bit of these attack vectors, right? EDR is very important from an endpoint perspective, but also NDR, the network telemetry, is also just as important as we begin to see now as we move forward that the threat actor has Cobalt Strike, and we see this adversarial beacon identified. So that the actor is now communicating via C2, right, deployed by Cobalt Strike, and this enables us to see, right, we have static based signatures and dynamic, right, behavioral based signatures that enables us to see, this command and control, and take a look at the obfuscation that we're seeing here, right? So we can see, the obfuscated activities that threat actor is doing, trying to hide his connection out via command and control. Now, just like Victor said, the lateral movement. Now, once the threat actor is in there, right, you need to be able to test, your defensive capabilities to understand when a threat actor does get in the organization, what is he doing to actually either recon and then move laterally. And AttackIQ helps us replay these things in the network. Where, as an example, a threat actor might, in most cases, they're going to begin their reconnaissance mission, right? And so they begin to scan, and throughout this, they might find an RDP port that's open, a database was discovered, and oh, by the way, yeah, there could be some CVE vulnerabilities that don't have, that the system is not connected out to the network, but it does have a connectivity within your network. So that threat actor, naturally, he's going to use common ports and protocols to live off the land in order to move laterally. So a few hours later, we begin, and this is as an example. Oh, look, there's print nightmare. I'm going to try to exploit that so that I can get root and move laterally on that system. And so in this particular case, right, some of the defensive mechanisms that we do have here is really segmentation, micro-segmentation. That reduces the blast radius, right, of threat actors trying to move laterally. And then we have our per hop distributed IDS. And what that allows us to do, as an example, when we use network segmentation and micro segmentation, if that threat actor is trying to exploit something outside of its segmentation, it's going to be denied, right? But we also have the ability with NSX intelligence to really go in and understand your flows within your multi-cloud. And from that, we can go in and start a discovery to really discover what assets are communicating with what. And then we can give you firewall recommendation rules where we then can go publish these rules. And now you have the beginning of a segmented network that's going to reduce your risk and the blast radius of that threat actor. But the question might be, okay, what if that threat actor actually got into a segment of mine and he's okay with moving laterally within that segment? That's why we have a per hop traffic analysis with IDS. So that's the east-west capability. So if that app has been compromised and it's trying to move laterally or trying to, exploit something, a file server, we still have the IDS IPS capabilities in that, it's distributed in nature and it's at every single hop. But here's another aspect of it. You don't have to deploy 13,000 signatures because, VMware NSX was at the birth of these applications. We have an intrinsic understanding of what those applications are. And so by doing that, we can actually go and take a look and say, look, this is a finance app. You need these Tomcat signatures, or you need these Exchange or Apache signatures, or these 80 signatures. And the reason that you want to deploy, IDS IPS is because, even 35% of what we're seeing is folks are scanning and then exploiting as a way to get initial access into your organization. 33% phishing, 35% here relative to scanning and exploiting. And according to our own intelligence, this is a survey, our customers, 70% of the database, they still remained unpatched, right? So having an unpatched, asset is sort of like having your crown jewels in a wet paper bag. It's just not going to work. But you know what? We know patching's hard. And sometimes you can't even, you have cycles that you can only patch at certain times of the year. So what we have provided is this virtual patching. So in this case, the IDS IPS, we can go and actually virtually patch that print nightmare, right? To where we can see the exploits coming in, and then we can block those exploits like print nightmare from being delivered to that endpoint. And here again, the CVE, this is the IDS, and we can see here that we have blocked that particular threat, and there's your alerts on the print nightmare. But guess what? Meanwhile, right, threat actors are not going to stop. Okay, I got stopped on that one. We are going to actually see where 75% of what we're seeing in the industry is that threat actors are using common ports and protocols, especially remote desktop protocol, to actually move laterally within the organization. So from there, we have an RDP attempt, right? The exploit didn't work. So now I'm going to try to move laterally via RDP. That could be with stolen credentials, right? Harvesting those credentials. It can be with brute force, whatever that is, but we see this lateral movement. And again, going back to this is the technology that gives us insight into what that threat actor is doing when it comes to lateral movement. Again, that's carbon black workload, as well as our network traffic analysis and NDR capabilities. And as we drop into the NTA, this is our ability to understand what is going on within east-west of your organization. So our approach is that we apply unsupervised machine learning to all the traffic within that observed network. That's east-west. And this really allows us to recognize the anomalies in traffic and distinguish them from normal activity, right? So we see the suspicious users, we see all kinds of suspicious content, and we can do this with no tapping whatsoever. So usually you'll have to span or tap to get east-west visibility, but because of VMware is part of the hypervisor, there's no more tapping. But unsupervised machine learning just isn't enough, because we all know an anomaly is an anomaly, doesn't mean it's necessarily malicious. So what we have done to help reduce the false positives that NTA does provide from myopically only looking at unsupervised machine learning, we leverage labeled behaviors and network traffic, right, that we've generated by analyzing millions of samples every day. And these models help identify true threats and remove those anomalies that are not actually security relevant. So we apply the supervised threat-centric machine learning models on top of that in order for us to gain, accurate threat detection. And just to pause here for a second, I'm at a point where don't trust us, right? Put this underneath test. And so that's what we did. And NSX NDR was the first network detection response to be tested by SC Labs in the industry. And you can see here, given our visibility that we're showing you right now, we were tested against OLRIG, APT3, APT29, FIN7, and we saw everything that they threw at us from a networking perspective. Now let's move on to the CB workload. And I want to turn this back over to Victor so that he can show us, how he sees remote processes and their communication over the network. Victor?
Yeah, so as we were talking about, building the story about the unified kill chain, we talked about initial access, we talked about it's going to do a beacon to C2, it's going to get its instructions, then it's trying to do lateral movement. All of those things are happening on the network level. You need complete visibility. Now, the way security was taught to me, first, you really need to know what you want to block or what you want to allow. So go ahead and put your allow list. Rest everything is blocked. Second, security is not a one-time deal. Things that are going to change, that's where you need signature. There is a place for signature as well. Finally is where anomaly. And as Chad said, anomaly is an anomaly, something that we don't understand it yet. That's something with Carbon Black Cloud, we call them as watch list. We will provide you information on the process, we call them node. On every node represented for a process triggered at an endpoint or server level with an exclamation mark and a report that this IOC, indicator of compromise, is actually associated with this process because it tried to do this anomaly thing. Now, you can take action, you can set up policies to take actions for you, so you can do auto remediation. Again, at the end of the day, what we're really talking about is that first, you know what you need to really allow and block. Second, you have those signatures because there are still attacks out there. There are still places where signatures work because people are still trying to do the known attacks. So signatures are built. And finally, the category. That's where really the NSX we have, and coupled with NTA and IDPS, where you can really detonate those. That sandboxing technology coupled with the Carbon Black Cloud is we're something that we don't understand it yet, but we still want verdict along with all the telemetry data, all the analytics that we can get out of it. That's where it really comes together to stop those sophisticated attacks because we don't understand them. That's why we call them sophisticated. So they are advanced just because we don't understand them yet. However, we want telemetry, complete visibility, so we can get detection. And finally, we can either do manual prevention or automated prevention and really get that, stop the attack from way before it's moving along the chain.
Absolutely. And as you see here on the anomalous RDP connection, right, we have full visibility from a network perspective as well, where we have, NTA rules, static and dynamic rules, as well as behavioral analysis around the ability to see threat actors use common ports and protocols, right? Living off the land to move laterally within your organization. So as we close here, in this particular case, we end up, now that I've moved laterally, the threat actor has found something of value. And then we see a lot of exfiltration and ransomware / destroy from this perspective. So several hours later, the attacker actually starts to exfiltrate data, and some tools like DNS-CAT. This is a way that they can use DNS to actually move their data and exfiltrate that over alternative protocols and C2 channels, right? So once that data is exfiltrated, they often enact a scorched earth top campaign, or what we call sometimes, double or triple extortion with ransomware, right? So now I've removed it out of the organization. This is what we call double extortion. And this is what we're seeing in 59% of the cases. Is it's not just the ransomware, but they're also exfiltrating the data. So you have to pay to unencrypt it, and then you got to pay to keep them from releasing that publicly. And again, back to this scenario on the delivery and the exfiltration of ransomware, strong capabilities here again with Carbon Black workload, as well as the network sandbox and the IDS being able to pick up some of this telemetry. Let's talk about the IDS. This is the exfiltration stage, right? You really want to understand where that data is, egressing your organization. And so we have many different types of technologies that can detect this. IDS is being one of them. NTA is another one as well, right? But as you take a look, we can see the signature-based capabilities that we have on, as an example, DNS-CAT, which is a tool designed to create that encrypted command and control channel to exfiltrate data outside the organization. And then east-west, remember that the malware that we're talking about here, as an example, DarkSide on this one, right, was able to be delivered from an internal asset that had already been compromised. And so that sandbox being inside the organization, east-west is able to take those off the wire and then dynamically execute those in a sandbox. And you can see here some of our differentiations on what the sandbox is trying to do is evade virtualized sandboxes, right? And that's a challenge in the industry, is those virtualized sandboxes. Thus, why we have that full system emulated sandbox. And then back to the Carbon Black side, I'll turn this back over to Victor to really discuss, the detection capabilities around those ransomware and the indicators of compromise here.
Yeah, so at this stage of the attack, at this point, attacker had done initial access, established C2, laterally moved it. We will stop early on, but let's assume the attacker is at this stage of the attack chain. First of all, we want full capability to actually live respond on that endpoint, on that workload, on that server, on that machine where it's sitting on coffee shop or it's traveling, wherever that is, we want live response. What that means is we want to get the forensics out of it before we actually quarantine it, before we actually go in and actually decommission that machine. So live response is one way. Carbon Black Cloud give you full access to the machine. You can look at the processes, you can look at the registry modifications, you can look at all sorts of things before even attacker clears that. Second, vulnerability management. So before we even decommission that machine or quarantine it, you want to know what happened, what changed with that machine. Without any other hooks or without any third party, within the same single sensor, you can get vulnerability out of that machine. The database is actually built within Carbon Black Cloud. You can see the OS level vulnerabilities and application level vulnerabilities, such as it could be that Java version was bad, or it could be the Adobe version that was installed was bad. So again, at this stage of the attack, you want to get all the information so that you can actually take action, because this is a stage of attack where you want to take action so that you can really sever that link so the data don't actually get exfil. Second, you want to make sure that you get all the insights out so that next time you can prevent the same kind of attack. And finally, let's contain it. Let's stop the widespread. That's where among Carbon Black workload, among Carbon Black Cloud, and NSX NDR NTA, you could really limit that blast circle, and you could really limit that contain that attack. And that's where the power is these days, because you want to get all the insights, but you don't want to be in a waiting pattern. You don't want to be in a holding pattern where while you're getting the insights out of that endpoint, out of that server, out of that workload, it's expanding. So you really want to get that isolated. Second, get all the information you need so you can really formulate the strategy. You can really get the tactical strategy done so that you can prevent the same kind of attack next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we close here, before we get into the demo, Victor's going to show you a demo of Carbon Black, endpoint detection response, and then I'm going to show you a demo of the network detection response capabilities within SX that follow the campaign that we just said here. But this is, you have your best of breed standalone, EDR and NDR, but really it's better together, right? And this is where we appreciate our partnership with AttackIQ because their platform really helps us connect the dots relative to testing, as an example, proving our capabilities to where, across that modern attack framework between the endpoint and its observability, between the network and its observability, we have visibility and detection and response capabilities across, the entire modern attack framework and those tactics and techniques that are being used against you within your organization. So with that, we're going to move on to demos for you. We're going to be focusing on the dark side aspect. So given that, we're going to move directly now into the demonstrations. And first, we're going to start off with Victor, and he's going to demonstrate the Carbon Black Cloud endpoint detection response capabilities in this scenario. So I'll turn it over to you, Victor.
Yeah, thank you. So again, in this demonstration, first of all, you want to remember that we purposely set the sensor policy to detection mode only. All of this could have been prevented. All of this could have been blocked. All of this could have been actually stopped way before. However, for demonstration purposes, for illustration purposes, we actually set the sensor policy to detection only so that we can really demonstrate the visibility that you get from Carbon Black sensor so that we can really talk about this demonstration. So I'm gonna walk through this as a story. I'm gonna walk through this as an analogy that I would like to talk to, where as a SOC analyst, as an analyst, where when I see an alert, and there are differences, watch list alert versus CB analytics. Watchlist alerts are those, let's call them anomaly based. That's something that VMware Carbon Black, feels and really want you to actually look at it. At the same time, we're giving you the context that you need to make decision. We did not take action on your behalf just yet. And again, keep in mind, all of this was set on detection mode only. So this alert right here, first scene, I see the time, the reason, I can see it. A keyword I'm gonna use here is gonna be watch list. Watch list actually comprised of, you can think of it as one watch list is a bunch of IOCs, indicator of compromises, packed into one watch list. We have two kind of watch list. One is where you subscribe. That's something that we get it from VMware Carbon Black. We get it from SANS. We get it from our partners. That's something the IOCs that they see or detect. And we, based on the alert that we're getting, the data, the telemetry that we are getting from your endpoints and servers and the workloads, we actually provide you the high fidelity alerts in Carbon Black Cloud. Second type of the watch list are custom watch lists. That's something based on your environment. Those are also known as environmental watch lists because you know your environment better than anyone. There is no vendor, there's no partner who can actually build the IOCs, the crown jewels that you feel for your organization that you want to get alerted on. You want to make sure that if there is any correlation to something like that, I'll give you an example. If let's say your database server is only accessed on RDP and someone is trying to do SSH to it, or you want to see who's actually scanning my database server, you can actually put that into IOC. You can simply actually create an IOC where the Nmap scan or SSH with an IP address or hostname, when it's actually triggered, will give you an alert. You can set the severity, you can set the target value. And again, this is environmental. This is all based on your environment. So the way I set this alert is severity 10, which means highest. We have 1 to 10. 10 means the highest. Target value. What it means for me as an organization, you can start with critical, high, medium, low. I set this as high. And again, this is all based on your policy, the way it's actually triggering alert for this device. So let's go ahead and open this up. And again, all of this is, you're going to see it based on the conversation we just had with Chad as well, the same attack, the attack chain we went through. So when I open this alert, this is the exclamation mark I was talking about. So we refer to this as a node. So PowerShell executable is not anomaly. It's not bad. We all know it. However, why are we saying that there's something going on? Because we detected an anomaly. This is where there is no signature, but at the same time, based on the watch list, based on the IOCs that we see, we are telling you that this IOC is actually associated with what happened, what was used, what was triggered among this node, among this process. So PowerShell EXE, with all of these 9 reports and 9 hits, this is enriching the context. Now you can actually make a decision, good or bad. We're giving you the context, like all of these IOCs are actually associated with this node. The way I look at when I open the process tree, and this is again, I'm a visual person because this helps me actually reduce the time to make a decision, good or bad. What's the next verdict? What I want to do from here? Do I want to go take an action from here and quarantine? I want to bypass. I want to share the process tree with the tier two analyst. What I want to do from here? Again, I'm a visual person about who was logged in, what was the operating system, what was the IP address? Was it on-prem? That means, was it within my organization, or was it off-prem? Was it at coffee shop or their personal home network or traveling? What was the policy selected for this device? And again, this is very important for me because that drives the tactical strategy for the next steps. That really tells me, do I need to lock down the policy? Do I need to change the policy? So all of those decisions, I can make it quicker instead of actually having to go through different screens or different data points. So here, the way I see it, I see an Excel actually triggered all of these processes. Again, as an analyst, I would need more information. So what happened? What happened actually? We're trying to replay what happened at the endpoint level. What happened on that operating system? Who clicked what? Who downloaded what? And what happened consequently? So the way I see it is Outlook, open an Excel. Now, I know the way it's gonna look, that it's not bad. Outlook can open Excel because sometimes we have Excel embedded into emails. Very usual, business as usual. However, what's unusual here is, what's the anomaly here? And again, that exclamation mark on the node is gonna drive that decision why it's bad, why it requires our additional eyes on it. Is this right here, Visual Basic. Now, if my organization, if my company actually drives a policy that we do not allow Visual Basic because it's bad, it actually prone to attacks. It's actually the fundamental of IOCs, or indicator of compromise. The initial access is actually usually done by using Visual Basic because it's a full-fledged command line. You can embed all sorts of commands here. And that's what happened in this attack as well. So again, it's not just about what happened at the moment. We are trying to replay what happened right before the attack as well. I didn't even speak about the dark side ransomware attack just yet. We are talking about what happened right before. So Outlook, open up Excel, using that watch list context within the watch list name, column black endpoint, suspicious indicators. We looked at it. Now, as I'm peeling this onion, as I'm digging deep into it, within the same console, that Excel actually opened Chrome.exe. And again, it's not usual, at the same time, it's not very unusual. But I can see that this Excel had Visual Basic that triggered Chrome.exe. That means it actually opened up a web browser. All right, so let's look at it. So when I click on it, I can see what website was actually accessed. So I can see there's a website named freecoupons.com. And again, all of this is for demonstration purposes. There is no real website called freecoupons.com. I'm also looking at other processes associated with the same parent process. So this will be a parent process. All of these are child processes. I see there's a ping to the same sort of website as well. That also gives me a context, that gives me a confidence that there was some sort of attention to going to the website and pinging it first to check if it's alive or not, then opening up a Chrome to actually go to the website. All right, we still need more information. And again, we are peeling this onion within the same console, same information to understand what's our next steps. What do we want to do from here? So I look at it as another PowerShell exe. There is exclamation mark with all those watch list hits. We are giving you the context that you need. What are the IOCs associated with this child process now? So I go ahead and click on this executable. This looks a little suspicious because I'm as an analyst, as a previous experience. But at the same time, if there's a tier one analyst, there's someone beginner level, there is a skill set still needed to be done, or they need to train on this console. How would they know it's good or bad? Well, we're giving you the reputation right here, known malware. So right away, you can tell that it's a good or bad. You can actually go into binary details and look at all the binary details. What was the file description? When was it seen first? If the attacker is smart enough, they will actually try to hide all of this information from you, and that's what is happening here. So how do I determine it's good or bad? Because I can see the reputation here, but I can also go to VirusTotal. So right from the console, using the same hash, we went to VirusTotal to look at it. This is where I can confirm that this is a dark side ransomware named as freecoupon.exe. And again, you will see that very common, very frequent in common attacks these days. They're not going to name the executable as dark side ransomware. They're going to try to be smarter. They're trying to be sneaky about it, how they name it. So you can see there was actually a theme where we did a ping to free coupon dot something. We actually open a Chrome web browser to free coupon dot something. We downloaded. So that's where victim actually fell for it. That's where victim actually really saw that there was a common theme. So they didn't find the anomaly. They continued to fall for it. But as an analyst, you need that information. That's where the Common Black Cloud is providing you raw data, enriched data about the file modifications, the module loaded, cross-proc. That's something that you would need an insight. If this turned into an incident, you need that information. Registry modification. What changes did they make on the endpoint? Child processes. So all of the information is right here. I'll peel one more process, that what happened with this child process. This is where I can see that this child process PowerShell is actually executing hostname exe, ipconfig, nmap, shell exe. And again, all of these processes doesn't look bad when you look at them as singular. Put them together, I can assure you this was an attempt for recon, because hostname is giving me the information about the endpoint or workload or server. ipconfig is giving me information about the IP address locally assigned to that machine, so that I can actually go in, try to attack it, or whatever I need to do. Nmap, once again, for a recon. Shell.exe. Now, what is that? Again, with experience, I know something is suspicious, but at the same time, Common Black Cloud is also giving you that exclamation with the watch list hit right here. At the same time, what I said before, that we can get the information about the reputation, but if you see it, and that's where again, we can't just rely on signatures. Reputation is not listed. What does that mean? That means we don't know about this binary. Let's go ahead and try VirusTotal. Well, they're saying item is not found. So how do we know if this binary is good or bad? How do we correlate that? That's where the true power of enriched data, the EDR, comes in. This is where we provide you the raw data, unfiltered data. You have access to it. Despite the fact we are recommending you the things that we feel that this is good or bad, we still give you full access to the data that you need sometime to make decision for your organizations. So even though we didn't find the reputation, what we did find in that enriched EDR data, first of all, obviously techniques and the TTPs that we are finding is tactics, techniques, and procedures. And you will see sometimes the MITRE TID is exactly linked to the alert. what I want to point out your attention to is this right here. So we know freecoupon.exe was DarkSide ransomware. Using the machine learning and correlation, we are actually telling you the application freecoupon.exe dropped an executable file shell.exe. Now you can be determined and you can assure that this is bad. There is no room for actually guessing anymore because we don't know the binary, yet we know the correlation between it. And that's where it really, I would say, the power of it comes to the raw data, the replaying the whole attack before and after for any sort of endpoint workload servers. And that's where the correlation between EDR data and NDR data is very important these days.
Well, thanks, Victor. Thanks for the great insights that you've given us on the Carbon Black endpoint detection response. You're right, visibility is key, observability as well, and our detection capabilities on the endpoint. But as you very much are said, that the endpoint is that one piece. Now let's talk about the network detection and response and what we see on the actual network. This is the NSX network detection response capabilities, and based on what we just discussed, this is a very high level campaign that we have seen across a lot of customers. But these types of things is where the network detection response, utilizing the sandbox, utilizing the IDS, utilizing network traffic analysis, is connecting the dots of what that threat actor is doing once they gain that initial access within the organization. Here you can begin to see on this malware wheel that we've seen 4 different threats, right? Malicious file download, a little bit of dark side, DNS cat here, as well as it targeting 2 hosts within your network. And then, the attack stages on the right really follow the MITRE attack framework. We had a delivery of something. The ones that are highlighted in orange are the ones in which we see that tactic being deployed: command and control, lateral movement, and then exfiltration. Now we're starting at the very high level, and rest assured you can get down all the way down into the PCAP of that event that we detected on. Here is the campaign blueprint. It's interactive. You can see here that these are our 2 home devices. So this is what we're trying to protect. This is the lateral movement that we spoke of earlier. As an example, Eternal Blue being able to move laterally within the organization. Here's the threat actor. We see exfiltration via DNS cat. Also, the download of malicious files, as well as the communication via dark side. And this is actually interactive. So if I select on, this Flask, this is actually the malware that was executed inside of the Sandbox. You can see here we get a little bit of IOC information and the URL in which it came from and the hosts. Same thing with Eternal Blue. We can have additional information there on Eternal Blue. As we move down, one of the values that is the network detection response, given we have telemetry coming from several different sensors within the organization, it's all about the ability to correlate those signals across a campaign that allows us to show you a timeline of what those threat actors are doing. And so we have a timeline here. You can start at the start, the end, the highest impact, but let's just start at the start time. And you can see, given this time, we're seeing a malicious file download to this home device. We give you IOCs, attribution that we saw, 175, which is, out of North Korea. If you want to have any more information, there's Who Is Intelligence, right? You can go and look at the event directly itself. But if I just click on dark side here, it's going to give me the reference event. Here's the SHA. It'll tell me a little bit about what's going on in that file in which we saw, first seen, where it was downloaded, and the protocol in which we saw it. If you wanted to select and take a look at it deeper into DarkSide, right, this is where our telemetry comes in from our full system emulated Sandbox. Again, we'll dynamically execute this in the Sandbox. Here again, this is the analysis overview of that file that we've seen. Here's the threat level. We know it's DarkSide. We know it's a Trojan and it's ransomware. and its antivirus family here. But as you else can see that, we're seeing these types of execution anomaly, and that's associated with modern attack tactics and technique. And we also, as we interact with that malware, we actually allow it to create those connections out to the dark side, those command and control. And here you can see that we capture the network traffic and network traffic from this particular threat actor and this threat, and we're able to capture that. And here's a PCAP that you could open up in your own PCAP repository. And again, we've identified this as malicious traffic that we're seeing between those hosts. And as we move down, we see command and control, right? This is more information. So we got command and control going back out to North Korea. Here is just a high-level overview of the rule. You can scroll down, and if you wanted to take a look at that rule, you can see that here, our categorization, the abstract, and exactly what we're detecting on relative to the IDS. So again, Sandbox, if it was in a prevention mode, we would have stopped this. Again, this is all a detection capability demo. The IDS IPS, again, in prevention mode, it could prevent the command and control. And then here's where network traffic analysis comes in, our ability to understand anomalies and malicious activity around the lateral movements that you're seeing here. This one, as an example, Eternal Blue. And we can see from patient 0, now we're talking from patient 0 to patient 1. And that's our lateral movement. We were able to then download malware from that threat actor, same type of malware. This is the dark side again. We see the dark side command and control. And then finally, the threat actor in this short sequence was lucky enough to find the data in which they were looking for. And then they begin to exfiltrate that data via DNS cat. So in closing, we hope that you have seen some value here and understand that the partnership that we have with other vendors in the industry is very important. And that partnership that we have with AttackIQ, and we appreciate AttackIQ as that partner, as they have helped enable us better perform within our product around development, around troubleshooting, as well as around testing. And we hope that you have seen some of the same type of capabilities here that AttackIQ can help you test your infrastructure as we move forward. So with that, we thank you. Appreciate the time that you have given us today. And Victor, you have any last closing words for us?
No, as you said, please test your controls. Make sure that there's a automated way of testing your controls. Red team exercises, penetration testing engagements, all good and well, but they are one time. You cannot do it every time you make a change in your environment. However, you need to make sure that your controls are intact every time you make changes. So again, use AttackIQ to test your security controls, and stay tuned. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for joining.